Hello, I'm Chris Scargill and welcome to Series 4 of Tourism Business Chat. I'll be chatting again to prominent leaders in the sector about what life in tourism looks like in 2023 and how innovation, funding and technology impacts their businesses, the background of their career journeys and much, much more. I've been working with tourism-based businesses for many years and I have a real passion for the sector, as do my guests. This week, my special guest is Asa Morrison, Chief Executive of Visit Great Yarmouth, a tourism business improvement district focused on drawing visitors into the town. Yarmouth, as it's often known, has been a seaside resort since 1760 with a fantastic sandy beach. Holiday making there rose when the railways opened in 1844, giving easier and cheaper access to the town. Throughout the 20th century, Yarmouth boomed as a resort, with its promenade, pubs, trams, fish and chip shops and theatres amongst other things. Today, tourism remains a key economic factor, employing some 13,500 or 13% of the local population. Asa sees his task as ensuring there is plenty for visitors to do so they have a fantastic experience. Part of this is to oversee many of the events that bring in guests. And we will hear how his educational journey into tourism and a consultancy role, a role that started out when running the first air show in Yarmouth, now sees him overseeing a budget of 450,000, working with the 1,000 bid members. We'll also hear how Asa works hard to fill the 45,000 bed spaces. There's clearly lots to talk about, so let's go. Hello Asa, how are you? Nice to see you.
Good afternoon.
What a lovely day it is. I mean, we're recording this in the first week of the Easter holidays in 2023 and the sun is shining.
And it makes a nice change.
It does, doesn't it?
Doesn't it? After a few dark months, a bit of sunshine is a welcome reminder that summer is well and truly on its way.
Absolutely, absolutely. The daffodils are out and the birds are singing. And a really good feeling time, Asa.
Yeah, it's a positive. It's a positive time for the tourism sector. I think it's a positive time for everybody. You go through a long, dark winter. Winter has its own appeals and its own attractions, but it's a little bit dark and a little bit cold. We start getting the long summer evenings are starting to turn up. You've got a little bit of light at 8 o'clock. That's fantastic. And that's what we head towards our true British summer. Let's hope we're looking for a really good 2023.
Fingers crossed for that. Definitely fingers crossed for that. Now, your role is as Chief Executive of Visit Great Yarmouth. So tell me about Visit Great Yarmouth.
So Visit Great Yarmouth, we're a destination management organisation, but we're also a business improvement district, or a tourism business improvement district. We can trace our roots back probably to the 60s to some trade associations. And then critically, in 1995, we became a company limited by guarantee and emerged as the Great Yarmouth Tourist Association. That operated as a membership body effectively for nearly 20 years. 2015, it's re-emerged or metamorphosized into the Great Yarmouth Tourism and Business Improvement Area. And this was effectively becoming a business improvement district, but a tourism focused one. That changed the entire dynamics of the membership, entire dynamics of the business, the operation, everything. And then 2020, we began using the trading name of Visit Great Yarmouth because it explained more about what we did. It was clear a Great Yarmouth Tourism Business Improvement Area doesn't tell you exactly what we're all about. We like to think of Visit Great Yarmouth. It's clear we're about driving and developing tourism, enticing, encouraging more people to visit the area, stay longer, work with our businesses to ensure that we're creating jobs in tourism, we're creating that commerce of tourism and giving everybody fabulous experiences.
Excellent. And so how does the role of Visit Great Yarmouth work? What are the primary objectives of that? As in, what do you do? What do you organise for the town?
So our key and effectively our activities you sort of split into four loose areas, being marketing, events, facilities, maintenance and access, and then a fourth pot that's other little things that we sweep up that just might be a good idea to do at a time. So big for us is down the marketing side. So we invest heavily in national PR. We invest heavily in local PR. So through the national PR, we're organising press visits. We'll organise anything up to like a dozen press visits a year. They will come and stay and enjoy the destination, everything the destination has to offer. So these will be papers like The Guardian, The Sun, The Times, The Express. We'll look after them, essentially. They'll write us a story. So that's a big part of the national. We'll also run national competitions in major magazines. So the prize will effectively be a holiday of some description. So you take that side, and we will probably push out 24 press releases a year about the destination, just trying to pick up some commentary. And in a good year, we get about £2.5–3 million worth of media value in terms of our coverage.
Wow.
I think one of the challenges is that people don't always link it back to us. They read it and digest it, and they think it's just happening. There's a huge amount of work goes behind a press visit to make sure they have a good time and enjoy themselves, and we're showcasing the destination. We've then got the local PR, which is very much about selling to our day trips and selling what we do to Norfolk and Suffolk, essentially, due to our geographical location. So we look after that through local PR. That's press releases, that's stories. Again, it's competitions, but they might be more day focused. We've got a strong blogger program, so we run a blogger ambassador program. So each year we work with a number of bloggers. They become our ambassadors for the year. They come down, enjoy the destination, write all about us, cover us on social media. We do the traditional side, which you sort of what you loosely call traditional marketing, so appropriate media outlets, radio, any media opportunity that comes over that we think can raise the profile. We've obviously got our social media accounts that we push lots of activity through, and we now operate the Visit Great Yarmouth website, so we've got a big web platform to push everything out to the wider world. So when you tot it up, there's quite a spectrum of activities, and there's a few little sort of quirky projects in between. I'll have to look back because obviously we're starting a new year, but some of the stuff we did last year, we supported the Ainsley Harriott and Grace Dent Best of Britain by the Sea TV programme. So we cash loaded that to make sure that took place on the seafront. We worked really closely with ITV on a project around This Morning and Loose Women that included 6 live broadcasts on the seafront.
Lovely.
We picked a fantastic day, probably a bit too hot, 37 degrees, but that was 6 live broadcasts on primetime TV to what we would probably call our core market. So those sort of elements, those little sparkling projects. We ran a golden ticket campaign, which gave people the opportunity to win a golden ticket, which just gave them a massive day out in Great Yarmouth, where they got to go to the Hippodrome, the Sea Life, had lunch at Sarah's Tea Rooms, went to the Pleasure Beach. So there's a package offer. That went down really well, and another little positive little gimmick. So the marketing side drives drawing attention to the place. The events, and we'll part with over £200,000, or we'll invest over £200,000 into events, and we'll invest in things like Wheels Festival. We'll invest into the Out There Festival. We fund the Big Wednesday fireworks in Great Yarmouth, the Big Tuesday fireworks in Hemsby, and all in all, I think if you look at there's 19-20 events that we'll fund during the year. Now we're not core funding all of them. Some of them are core funding. We're paying the whole amount. Some we just give them a little bit of top up to make sure that they're doing something a bit extra. Mm-hmm. So like in Galston, we don't fund the Galston Clifftop Gala, but we do fund the fireworks for them.
Right.
So it's just enhancing and adding value to the event. And then we'll put a little bit of money into what I call the more the community events. So the village fetes, if we think there's a bit of a visitor offer, and as you can imagine, that we know a lot of visitors will rock up to our little fetes in the towns, in like Caister, in Hopton and so on, we'll fund them. I'll put a little bit of money in just so they can enhance their offer. So that's our event side. Facilities is looking after things like decorative lighting, CCTV, supporting in bloom projects. So it's about enhancing the area, just making it look nice. We're investing this year significantly into the timer switches in the seafront lights on the Great Yarmouth Marine Parade, because it's always the timer switches that fail. By investing in the timer switches, it will keep the lights on longer, and therefore we should be able to invest more money into other things going forward. So it's invest to save sort of projects, but always on the facility side. The small projects element, that's where we pick up some of our research. So we'll do visitor research, business research, we do some mobile phone tracking, understanding where people are coming from, and we take that data, put it back into our marketing campaigns. So we're targeting our marketing campaign to areas where we know that we've got warm markets, or perhaps areas where we've got cooler markets, and we think we might be able to grow that debate. We work in partnership with some organisations such as the Tourism Alliance, Visit East of England, and British Destinations. So we'll put membership packages to them and fund them directly to meet our agenda. So all in all, there's quite a big package that actually drives and develops the destination with its core principles of increasing tourism, supporting tourism, but making sure we're doing it in a responsible way as best as we possibly can. Yeah. I think that's it in a nutshell.
That's
Quite a big nutshell.
That's a big nutshell. Yeah, exactly. But thank you for that. That's a great explanation.
Yeah.
And you talk about the visitor economy and bringing visitors in. I appreciate you may not have the exact numbers on the top of your head, but what sort of level of day visitors are you getting? What staying visitors are you getting? And what's the sort of total value of the spend on the Great Yarmouth area that you're bringing visitors to?
The easier, I'll pick a good year, and a good year is one that wasn't necessarily corrupted by COVID. So as we've gone through the last 3 years, we've had some challenges with COVID, as we all know. And 2020 was catastrophic. 2021 wasn't much better. 2022, that was a good recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Although not quite, I'd say, a full recovery, but certainly well on the way to recovery. And optimistically about 2023, we'd like to see ourselves returning back to 2019.
Right.
That sort of trading level. And that, in my mind, that would be success. So in a good trading year, you can expect to see about £650 million worth of money go through the tourism economy. In terms of visitors, we do about 7 million over a good year. Roughly 1 million of those are staying, the other 6 million day trips. So that's quite a lot of staying visitors. And that, we've got 45,000 bed spaces. That's a lot of bed spaces to fill across the destination. Well, obviously, one of our biggest challenges is that those bed spaces are in demand during those summer months, that core period in the summers when we get most of the activity. We know we've got some capacity elsewhere in the year. In terms of employment, 13,500 employees. That counts for 37% of all the people employed in the Great Yarmouth area. So tourism is big business.
Big numbers there, Asa. And so I guess the dynamics of the organisation has changed as a result of it being a tourism business improvement district. So what sort of numbers did you have before? What sort of membership, what sort of spend value versus where you are today? The bid must have made a big difference.
Yeah, I mean the bid was a brave move, and it was, and that is very much before me. I came in after the bid had been developed. But going back to the GYTA days, which I had, I had a relationship with from a different destination. I'm well aware of Yarmouth's existence, and sort of worked with the likes of David Marsh and Alan Carr in those days. But I worked for a different destination, so I was familiar with GYTA. But the GYTA operated; it was effectively a membership organisation. Lovely, well liked, well respected, but in terms of real money, it was probably only bringing in about a fifth of what the business improvement district does. So yes, it was bringing in money, but it's probably around the 70k mark, and that was the voluntary members paying in. And they did some good stuff with it, but £70,000 when it went through as a business improvement district, those figures leapt to about 450,000. Now you can do a lot more with £450,000 than you can with 70. Now, with the £70,000, they used to do some really good marketing. I think they were wise how they spent their money. But then suddenly we get funded, you can start to do some really big things. And you can do some statement events, some statement marketing, and some sort of statement projects. And you can invest very, very heavily in things. And it's that flexibility.
Yeah.
One of the things in tourism, opportunities they turn up. You don't see them coming. You suddenly get an opportunity. And the fact that you've got the financial power to say, that looks a good TV show, we're going to support that, we can do it.
Yeah.
And that's really, really powerful. So it's that ability to have a decent budget. And around East Anglia, the destinations that have got bids are the destinations that have the ability to do something. So Ipswich has a big bid. Norwich has a big bid. They invest that in the tourism. As a result, they make a really big clout. Yes. Whereas the destinations that are operating as DMOs, they're very good, but they don't have that financial clout. And that makes the difference. So I'm really pleased that we're sitting in that world, and I'm hoping that what we do really benefits the destination and then critically our members. Yeah. It's got to work for them as well.
Absolutely. So and a bid, some people see them as a bit Marmite, some people like them, some people don't. For those people who may be listening who don't understand what a business improvement district is, it's effectively a levy charged within the business rates to the businesses in the locality. Explain that a bit more.
In simple terms, it's a levy. It's a small percentage of the business rates. It's charged directly to the business. You're elected on a 5-year term. If you're supported, that levy is collected. It is a legal requirement to pay that levy, much as paying your rates. And that money is then collected and then invested against our plans and our objectives. In our case, we will invest it in developing and growing and developing tourism to the benefit of our businesses. In terms of my, I think there is a school of thought. A lot of people think, well, actually, the local authorities should be doing a lot of that. The reality is, in modern Britain, the local authorities will not do what they did 25 years ago.
Yes.
And I think there's a growing acceptance that that is the case. Our local authorities, were well invested 25 years ago. They had significant budgets and did some really good stuff. As times have changed, the local authority budgets are nowhere near what they used to be. They've shrunk them accordingly, and therefore, as such, the services are different. There's still a need to promote and develop tourism. The businesses see that. That is why we've got a bid in Great Yarmouth. That's why there are lots of bids around the UK. That they, a bit of a call to arms. If you don't do this, you don't work in this way, what are you going to have? And it's providing the money and the events to shout about the destination, ensuring that we're sustaining those. Well, not sustaining, returning to those 7 million visitors we were getting back in 2019.
Yeah. And I guess as well, you mentioned that the value that you have to spend is probably 5 times bigger than it would have been in the previous guise, but you've probably got 10 or more multiples of people who are now members. So actually the spread across the cost is potentially fairer. Would you say that?
Yeah, potentially. I think with the old GYTA, there were about 100 businesses that were really heavily involved, and it run through those 100 businesses, and the rest of them were sort of loosely involved or didn't get involved. With the bid, everybody is involved. They're all paying in. We're just trying to make ensure that we are investing that money to give them the greatest return. And we spend a lot of time just, probably overanalyzing what we're doing. So, look, actually, is this a benefit? And honestly, if it's not a benefit, we'll drop it. But if it is a benefit, we'll enhance it. And, I think as you go through that journey with the businesses, there's a lot of is this value for money? Would we do this? And it takes that, very much a private sector mentality to a project. Say, look, is this getting a return? And if it's not, we'll drop it. We know from talking to business, they like the events. They like us investing in events because it's real, it's tangible, it creates, a real thing about people. Whereas with the marketing idea sometimes can be a bit ambiguous. For anyone involved in marketing, it's quite hard to necessarily nail down how successful, because destinations by nature, we're not transactional. Yeah. We're not selling we're selling a destination, so there's no financial transaction. Whereas if you're selling something like the Sea Life Centre or the circus and you're selling tickets, you can measure your marketing against your sales. Yeah. We can measure it against number of people visiting the site, number of page likes, its reach, but they're still quite ambiguous. Of how that's working. But we will continue to invest in these things as long as our businesses want us to do that.
Yeah, and obviously the money that you have and the money you bring into the town, a lot of people could say, well, it directly affects the key tourism businesses. But as you indicated previously, with nearly 4 in 10 people in the town of employment age working in the sector, then the whole town benefits from their spend and their housing and their mortgages and everything else that the sector supports.
I get back to the conversation quite often where you'll have a garage. To use an example. So a garage, what have we got to do with tourism? As much as it pains me, 95% of people that come up to this area arrive in car. It pains me because we don't have the transport infrastructure to bring bigger numbers, but they use a car. That's right, because they're using the car, they're using the garages. When people come up on holiday, the vast majority of holidays are self-catering, whether it be holiday parks, whether it be self-catering cottages, they're self-catering. They're up here for a week. We have a lot of supermarkets. We've probably got more supermarkets than we'd have from a town of our size. We've got that because of tourism. Those 7 million tourists need to go to the supermarkets. So we've got a plethora of supermarkets, a plethora of garages, and we've got all these wonderful attractions that we would not have if we were not a tourism destination. And there's a playground for the local residents as well. So you've got all these wonderful facilities on our doorstep. So it does make it's those ones that make a huge difference in actually the local area, because that secondary spend is occurring through the people employed in tourism. Spending in the hairdressers, spending in the clothes shops, whatever it might be. That money is working its way through the system, and everything grows.
Excellent. Okay, so talk about everything growing. And your career has developed over a number of years. Tell me about how you came to be CEO of Visit Great Yarmouth. What was your journey like?
It's good fun. Yeah, as in life, anything, I think it has its ups and downs. When I was at sixth form college, my dad pulled me to one side and just challenged me as to why I wasn't attending lectures. It wasn't that I didn't enjoy college; I over-enjoyed college life. In fact, I was there, but I was actually in college, and I was in college playing sport, doing lots of activities, but it wasn't necessarily focused on the academic side. And college suggested it might be a good idea if I went and did a course in leisure and tourism, as I had much more interest in travel and activities and sport, and I did, and it resonated with me. I went off, I thrived in that environment. I went off and did that at university. I worked a variety of different jobs while I was at university, but critically all in the tourism leisure world. I had some good advice for a lecturer, say, look, do any job you like, but just make sure it's relevant to what you're doing at university course. And that's given me a great grounding on the sort of base level. I worked operations, seafront leisure for a couple of years, and then moved into tourism proper, the sort of strategic development side. Firstly down in Suffolk, so I spent a decade down there heading up tourism and other things. I spent a few years as a freelance doing some consultancy work, which is how I bumped into Great Yarmouth. I'd known they got me to do some consultancy work around events and strategic event planning. And that was low key stuff. It was like a day a week. I was then they asked me if I'd like to take on the delivery of the air show, so I ran the Great Yarmouth Air Show back in 2018. I will not get involved in a bigger project. I think we had about 800 people working on the day. It brought at least £14 million into the local economy over that weekend. It was a fantastic spectacle, but it was just vastly expensive to operate. And it was the awful timing in terms of the world in 2018 was going through lots of terror attacks. We were struggling with the police decree over, you can do an event, but you must ring fence the seafront behind concrete, which we did, and that cost an absolute fortune. And because of the risk of terrorism, it was a heightened risk, so we basically built a hospital on the seafront because we were told we had to have the event. Again, that cost a fortune. And then we had some challenges with the RSPB and some birds. Again, we had to invest in some mitigation. Without those three things, the event would have probably been affordable. But in 2018, it was just unfortunate timing. What we did have was a spectacular event, which I'm very proud of, and worked with some really, really good people. And, 170,000 people. I don't think there's been a bigger event in Norfolk. It's a big one. It's just a very, very expensive one, and planes by their nature are expensive. So I carried on doing a little bit of work for Great Yarmouth around marketing and events, and then the chief executive role came up. I applied for it. I was appointed about a year and a bit ago.
Right.
So that was my madcap rapid journey into, but always leisure and tourism.
Right. Okay. And just as enthusiastic, and what a lovely area to be in. I mean, Norfolk is great, East Anglia is great, but being involved in the leisure sector is just, again, seeing people enjoy themselves as part of your job must be very rewarding.
I've tried to analyse this for years, and I think I've got to the point where tourism is about doing. If you do tourism right, you can do it wrong. Tourism right is about ensuring that there is a platform for all of your visitors or guests to have fantastic experiences. And that works for the whole sector. So if you get it right, you get it right at the destination level, you get it right at a hotel level, you get it right on the seafront, you're ultimately giving them a good experience. You give them a good experience from the journey to the holiday, for the arrival, for the experience each day. And they go again, I really enjoyed that. And it's that pride of saying, hey, look, this is what it's about. I've thoroughly enjoyed and continues to enjoy working in tourism. Tourism naturally attracts interesting people that are friendly, like other people, like doing stuff. It brings wonderful experiences because the nature of my world, I have to go and see our great businesses who do some great things. And there's something quite nice about being in theme parks during the winter months and going behind the scenes and going into the back offices of that world and how that machine all operates. It's a wonderful, wonderful industry to work in. And I think one of the problems with tourism, it gets, it's always had a bit of bad press about, it's low paid. Yeah, it is at the entry point. So at the entry point job in tourism, it is a relatively low paid industry. But all of these attractions, all of these hotels have managers, have supervisors, have organisations, and there is an opportunity if you want to work in tourism, work with the system, you can have some fantastic experiences. So no, I would advocate working in tourism. It's given me a wonderful career, something I enjoy getting up to do in the morning. It's hard to put down sometimes. I think that's and anyone that works in tourism will know this. It doesn't stop. There's always something you can do. You never finish, because there's always that you can do a bit more marketing, or a little bit more research, or develop a product a bit further. So it never ends.
Yes,
and that can that can be quite challenging at times, but it's good stuff, and it's always positive stuff.
Yeah, and I find, with my passion for the sector, I just find that you try to deal with leisure and tourism during the day as your day job, but then you take time off, and that's your leisure time. But in your leisure time, you're then still dealing with those businesses. You're still going out, experiencing for yourself what's going on. But you then take back snippets, or you identify things that you can then say, actually, I can see that working, or maybe I should be sharing that with somebody. It's just the fact that it does become a sort of 24-hour a day love, really, rather than a job.
Yeah, and I've got real examples. I drive, obviously, we'll holiday elsewhere. I'd love to say, I always holiday in Great Yarmouth. I have on occasion holiday in Great Yarmouth. It's been quite fun. But broadly speaking, we'll go away. I drive my family mad by taking photographs of information boards, and particular things that might be in a pub that I think that's really good. And I like that. And look, they've done a wonderful job. And what a good bit of branding. Because you don't stop. And if somebody's doing something good in an attraction, I can remember years ago, and this is going back about 20 years, we arrived at Holiday Cottage in the Lake District. And for the first time, we hadn't had to go off to a letting agency to pick up a key. So 20 years ago, you used to have to go and pick up a key from a letting agency. It was an absolute nightmare. Drive in, pick up the key, drive out to the accommodation. Well, there's a newfangled idea about a key press at the cottage. Well, I couldn't get enough of it. As a key press, it meant we arrived, we got the key, opened the door, and I'm waxing lyrical about this key. I'm asking if we're on holiday. Yes. This has changed tourism. You don't have to travel into the middle of Kendal, fight for a parking space to get your key to go. I said that's happening all across Britain. And slowly and surely, the norm now is you get your key at your property.
Yes.
Because it was horrible. What horrible experience of trying to fight to get your key on a Saturday afternoon, because in those days it was always Saturday. And these little changes that you get through the world, or something new on a menu that you haven't, you think, that's quite creative. Or somebody's done something quite nice with a drink, the way it's been served. You know, God, that's great. Because this inspiration is right across tourism all the time. And wonderful innovations. I mean, one good thing that came out of COVID, and it's so nice to... COVID was horrible, full stop. But a good thing that came out of COVID for all of tourism, it had to look at how it operated. So it broke down how it operated, and it reinvented itself in a more efficient way, because money's been tight during COVID. People were tight during COVID. It didn't work in the same way. So businesses were, Christ, well, everything's online. You've got to book. You've got to book so we know how many people are on site, because it's COVID. We've got to keep managing it. I thought, actually, people booking's quite useful, because I know tomorrow how many people. That means I need this amount of staff. And that's suddenly got a really efficient model. Because if you know you've got 10,000 people visiting on Thursday, you staff up. But you've got 3,000 people on Friday, you staff down. Whereas historically, you just guess.
Yeah.
Whereas now, wow, you've got some real power. So the tech innovations around communication. So even as an industry, how we communicated with ech other was always more often than not was face to face. It's great, very human, absolutely lovely. But it was ultimately face to face. Now we've evolved into a situation where actually we'll get 10 of us on a Zoom call for half an hour. We thrash through the issue. It's done. We're dusted. It's taken half an hour.
Yes.
So historically, in terms of efficiencies, an issue that might have taken up half a morning, if not a full morning, because we've got a problem on the seafront, 10 of us can get together, thrash it out for half an hour, and then job done.
You talked there about technology changes, and on a previous occasion, I know that you'd mentioned to me that you'd done a dissertation at your university which focused on Yarmouth, and also the movement towards the internet and how it was going to change. I mean, that has been a dynamic change to the paper products that were the traditional way of marketing. I mean, you must have seen a lot of changes in marketing of an area or marketing of a destination or marketing of a business over your time in the sector.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was at university in the mid-90s, and pretty much everything that I was taught has become largely consigned to history. As slowly and surely marketing just evolved and developed. So I did my dissertation. I was at University of London. At the time, I suppose my home was in sort of southwest Surrey. I've bounced all around the country, but I've got long-standing family links with Great Yarmouth and East Anglia. So I came up to Great Yarmouth to do my dissertation. My dissertation was on the use of the internet in tourism marketing and what the potential was. So I came up and talked to about 40, 50 businesses. Literally, and proper old-fashioned interview. I'd go and see them, I'd sit down with them, I'd record the conversation, and I went through hotels, B&Bs, couple of attractions. It was 3 months. It was 3 months' work. So I was up here for a number of months, and I slowly and surely built up a picture that was quite clear. In 1996, very few businesses had much of a handle on what the internet could do. There was one business that was using it effectively and were really genuinely getting bookings from it. And it was a very simple system of emailing them, emailing back. But it worked, and it worked perfectly well, and it was using the internet off the back of a very simple website. But they were clearing up on it because no one else in Great Yarmouth was doing it. So when someone went looking for something in Great Yarmouth, they're engaging with this one hotel that had quite a good system. And the guy just happened to be quite good at ICT. So he'd plugged in his modem, he'd sorted himself out. And in those early days, and then the acceleration in the industry, I think we went through a strange period between 95 and 2000 where it sort of didn't really happen. And then from 2000 onwards, it started to accelerate. The massive change for me was the mobile technology coming online. And 2005, the world of mobile BlackBerries, and then rapidly followed by a number of other different phones. Between 2005 and 2010, the tech got better and better. I ran an experiment. It's going to come across really geeky, but I went on holiday using my phone only, and that would have been 2008. So my daughter just literally been born, and we tried to run the holiday through my phone, and I just about managed it.
Right.
So in terms of who was enabled, so all the information was taken through my phone. We worked the holiday through my phone. We were up in Lincolnshire, and actually I think it was a point where actually you could do it. And then the acceleration was so quick. And suddenly it just faster and more data and more data and more data. And now it's the norm for everybody to be plugged in. We've seen a complete change in the way tourist information is delivered. So tourism information in the 90s, absolutely face-to-face, lots of letters coming in, lots of letters going out, big on faxes, faxing information over. And then there was a rapid decline in the interest in traditional tourist information as people realised quite quickly they could gain their information through their phone. And it's just making sure that tourism's got a role and responsibility to make sure that data is of quality. So the investment is now about getting quality data to our visitors rather than bad data, because they get bad data, they turn up when places are shut, to good data and keeping that data refreshed and updated and investing in data stewards, data managers that sit behind the websites, making sure the content's good.
Yeah.
So it's a complete change, and not wholly foreseen. I think people got the web. I don't think people got social media,
right,
or the power of having a relationship with your customer. I think that hit a lot of people quite surprised that I can have a real relationship with my customer, and those fraught early days in social media that were, Christ, I can say what I like. The etiquettes were wrong, whereas now the etiquettes are quite good.
Yes.
So I think there's a bit of drift. I'm not touching that. It's too aggressive. It's toxic. Whereas now there is an etiquette to social media, and if somebody doesn't behave themselves, they've gone. Yeah. You just delete them.
Yeah.
And whereas we were a little bit more understanding and tolerant. So change world completely.
Yeah, and as you say, that social media from its very raw beginnings has changed as well. And you mentioned earlier, you are now engaging with bloggers. So again, it's not just your marketing; you're giving these people the opportunity to come and explore for themselves, and then they are marketing for you. So you're actually detaching the marketing of the area to a third party who you obviously entrust because of the nature of their work. But again, it's an interesting concept that you're not in control of everything they do.
No, and that's quite brave. We've got a bit of control of where they're going and what they're doing, but there's a relationship there. But I'm big. I often say, what do you like to say? I like to tell a story. You tell a story. You're telling that story with experience. So if you want to come away to a destination, you've got to be told that story, whatever that might be, and all the bits that make up that story, and all the experiences that make up that story, that what might entice somebody to the area. So we're saying, okay, so with Great Yarmouth, we know the big things to our I can say average visitors. No such thing as average visitor, but Hippodrome Circus, Sea Life Centre, Pleasure Beach, Piers, out there festival, summer fireworks, Wheels Festival, all of these big things. The overarching element that everyone's called to is actually the beaches.
Yes,
it doesn't matter what the beaches are. The big thing. That's the thing that comes back in all the surveys. That's what they're coming for. We are absolutely gifted. I am so lucky to be able to work in a destination that I live in as well. That I'm gifted. Every single beach is fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're in Norfolk. We have some coastal erosion issues. We live with that. We live on the eastern side of Britain, but they are all beautiful sandy beaches, and they're rather wonderful. And the rest of the UK isn't like that. Mm. There's a few of them, but quite often the beaches, they're beaches, but they're nowhere near as beautiful as ours.
No, and they are beautiful, and they stretch, and the big blue skies that sit above them. It is a fantastic place to visit and to live, as you say. So, just moving into the people that are attracted to come to Yarmouth. I mean, the traditional seaside resort started way back when. Weekends for the workers who would jump on the omnibus and the trains and come out to the seaside resorts. I mean, clearly that's changed a lot. What has been the dynamic change, and what are you now seeing, and what are your customers seeing taking place in the demographic that's being attracted into Great Yarmouth and towns like it?
I think the history. I mean, we've got 250, 300 years of history as a sort of tourism destination, and the first 150, 200 years was quite well to do. It was at the higher end. Then as the trains came in, that began to bring the masses, and then as working regulations, the holiday came in, and the holidays, the August holidays came about. Again, it changed the destination, and it was its absolute zenith in the sort of like the mid '60s, and then slowly and surely we had this great idea to make international travel affordable, and of course everyone began to migrate abroad. The UK destinations were left in a difficult situation. It was really tough for resorts like Great Yarmouth, Blackpool, and Bournemouth, and the likes through the late 70s, 80s, and into the 90s. And that's been a real challenge for everybody to sort of rebalance the number of people arriving in the destination. What happened to us is this strange, frightening anomaly of COVID stopped people travelling abroad. So we suddenly had this sea surge of people in August, and it was to do with when places were closed and open, and we went through that journey. At August in 2020 and 2021 were generally really busy. They're busy through displacement and people not going abroad. And we're still seeing, as we look forward to 2023 with optimism, there is still that displacement factor of whether people are truly making that decision to go to an international holiday or to take a domestic break. The bit that lies underneath it is the sustainable argument or sustainable school of thought, where actually the younger people of today are absolutely consciously aware that air travel is not good for the environment. Therefore, if they're going to make a decision, but a domestic holiday, depending on how you do it, can be far less damaging. So there is the sustainable development to having domestic holidays. There's also the non-hassle factor. And for anybody that's been on a plane, it's hard work, particularly if it's with small children. I've lived the dream of being in an airport overnight with two small kids, and it was hell. And having to stay awake for 22 hours when someone that doesn't like staying awake longer than 18, that was absolute hell. And make it worse, so that we were landing in Cardiff and had to drive from Cardiff over to Norfolk. Great experience of my life. But the beauty of a domestic holiday is you don't have to go through that pain. You can jump in your vehicle, get on a train, whatever it might be, and arrive at your destination relatively quickly. And I think Great Yarmouth is well positioned on that front to meet the needs of that. We've also had that opportunity. We talk about sort of caravan park. We're really big on holiday parks, so we've got 10 massive holiday parks, and we've got probably a couple of dozen smaller holiday parks. Now, the major holiday parks, and I'm talking the Havens, Parkdean Resorts, Richardson's, have invested incredibly heavily over the last 25 years in their product.
Mm-hmm.
And for anyone that's not been inside a holiday park in the last 20 years, you'd be in for a surprise. The investment levels are phenomenal. The accommodation stocks are fantastic. They are high-end. They are heated. They are winterized. They've got wonderful balconies. They've got big TVs. They're all done out beautifully. And they've got extra space. They're wider than they used to be. They're higher than they used to be. They've got all the mod cons you would and wouldn't expect from something of this nature. So we're changing the product offer as well all the time. We've still got the hotels. We've got 30 odd hotels and nearly 100 B&Bs in and around Great Yarmouth, and we've got a thriving self-catering market between the traditional cottages and the world of Airbnb. So it's bringing people into the destination, but with different dynamics, different needs. The challenge going forward into 2023 is: are we offering enough, and is there enough of a pull to ensure the visitor goes, do you know what? I am going to stay in for a domestic break. I don't want to go through all the hassle of a European holiday. I think I'm going to go for your break. And actually, John, I can feel quite good about it as well, because I'm not burning all this fuel through an aeroplane. So we're looking forward to 2023 with optimism, and we are. And I think that's tourism's nature. But you'd like to think it tips in our favour.
Yeah. So recommendation there to try out a holiday park if you haven't tried out a holiday park in the last 25 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
What sort of spend are your customers seeing? I mean, are your customers worried about the cost of living crisis, both in connection with their own business and the spend of the people coming in? I mean, how is footfall at the moment? We're currently in Easter. How was last year? How are you expecting it to go? What sort of trends are you seeing or fearing you might see with the visitors that are coming?
I'll start there. There's multiple questions. Right, we'll start with the footfall. So footfall in 2022, okay, in terms of the data we got, was just above 2019. But we generally felt that spend was below.
Right.
Okay, so it's lower spend because there's less money in the system. But good on footfall. So the numbers are in the system. That's good. In terms of this year, and I've got January, February, and summer, March. Actually, early footfall is quite good. That's a positive indicator. It's quite good. When you ask the businesses about how the year's gone for them so far, I mean, that perfect situation of I've got about 40% saying actually it's been good, I've got 40% saying actually it's not so good, and 20% of the mill saying it's okay. So I've got a mixed bag.
Yes.
I'd rather have a mixed bag than everybody telling me it was awful.
Yes.
We've got some positive optimism coming out of that. As we move forward into the year, the challenges around individual finances, business finance, I think they're going to bite. I came off the phone to a business before this meeting, and his electricity bill has gone up 3 times. Sorry, it's 3 times as much as it was in 2019. Okay, and it wasn't what am I doing about it. The way he's getting around it is the minimum wage went up by £1, nearest or close to. That means all the base entry staff have all gone up, but he cannot afford to put the money for his managers and supervisors up. So they will stay at the same level. The staff will go up. That's how he's going to try and ride it, and he's going to be more hands-on.
Right.
So a lot of the owners are on that back to the floor to solve a problem. I was speaking to another owner. I said, "Is it a good time to call?" He goes, "It's a great time to call." He said, "I'm in the pub at the moment. I'm sitting behind the bar, and it's 3:00, so I'm really quiet. So now's a good time to." This is a business owner that probably never went behind the bar during the day. They've done that because it's a sensible thing to do as an owner, and it's a way to control costs. And when they're in a situation when supplier costs are going up, staff wages are going up, cost of energy is ferocious, marked against a consumer that wants to pay less because they haven't got the money in the back pocket, you've got a very, very difficult scenario. So we know we've had businesses that have closed in the winter when they probably wouldn't have because it's just not economically viable. We know that some of them are opening daylight hours, but won't worry about it if it's dark because, again, it's electricity costs coming into it. So it's a horrible storm of things you probably a business wouldn't want to deal with. I think there's always nervousness. At that perfect point in the perfect point of the year, it's that first week of April. It's the Easter weekend coming up. This is the traditional point where a lot more of the tills are open. There's a lot more transactional. How Easter goes will set them or not set them up for the season. And the first day of Easter, last Saturday was nothing short of appalling. However, Sunday was very good.
Yes.
And Sunday was nice spring weather. We can just hope for nice spring weather. What I really want, you want 16 degrees and blue skies. I think everyone settles for that in April. And 16 degrees, that magic figure where people will sit around and will enjoy the outside world. If it drops below that, you don't want to sit on a park bench too long. You don't want to sit out at sea. You don't want to walk on the beach. So the temperature gets a bit harder, and you've got to start putting your proper warm gear on.
Yes.
So it's a complicated year for business. It is about survival, and it's probably survival over thriving, making sure they get through 2023.
Yes.
And look at how opportunities might change going forward. But hard trading environment. The one thing that we mustn't forget, the British holiday maker or day tripper by nature wants to holiday and wants to day trip and wants to escape and have that escapism and have positive experiences. And we know that historically they'll always try and come back to a way to have a day out and do something nice.
Yeah.
And that's that's where we've got to hang our hat on that. Say, right, that's our opportunity. We know they want to do it. We've just got to entice them enough to make sure it's Great Yarmouth.
Yeah, and grabbed your share. Well done. Critical to survival in the COVID years was the government funding. They came in, provided furlough support, business grants, which were critical to ensuring that the businesses are open today. Because without that support, clearly the significant many would not be open today. But one of the challenges I hear in East Anglia is that central funding for tourism just doesn't come our way enough. How do the businesses in Great Yarmouth feel about that? Do they agree with that policy?
I think anyone would agree with the policy. I think that's one of the challenges of living in East Anglia. You're always hearing it's always the northwest, the northeast, on a regular basis, and I think that the lovely analogy is like the problem with East Anglia is it's not north and it's not south. It's East Anglia. It's not Midlands. It's this wonderful area out to the side that we just quite often get neglected. We don't have the biggest population density on the planet. We don't. We're relatively sparsely populated. I also think we're quite polite as a region. I wouldn't say that that Norfolk and Suffolk they're not aggressive personalities. They're not like these tough northerners that will bang on the doors of Westminster and say, "You will come up and you will give us all this money." We're much more, a little bit more refined, and maybe we are not getting the share that we perhaps deserve. And that is I think that's on all of us to argue the case with our MPs, our representative, our organisations. But there are little snippets. I can't say we're not getting government funding. We've got the benefit. We've got a wonderful bridge being put into Great Yarmouth this summer that will absolutely revolutionise the experience for our residents and visitors of travelling around Great Yarmouth. Now that's been supported, by effectively public money. That's an essential component, but it may not be on the same scale of some of the big northern and Midlands projects. And I accept that. Mm-hmm. But it is a duty on all of us to raise our virtual flag and say, hey, look, we exist, invest in us. We'll help grow the product.
Yeah. And there are some efforts being made for bringing the destination marketing organisations together and again having one single voice. And there is a sort of plan for the LVEPs or the local visitor economy partnerships. how are you going to see those working, and are you involved in any way?
Yeah, so I think this was one of the oddities of East of England is we've worked together well for a long time already. And the local visitor economy partnerships came about as a concept to get destinations to work together. Now, what we didn't realise in the East of England is we were working together. We're all friends. We know each other. We meet regularly online because that's the modern world, and we share ideas and we do campaigns through Visit East of England together. But that wasn't happening around the rest of the UK. They didn't talk to each other. I've come off a call with a destination this morning up in Lancashire, and they still don't really talk to each other up in Lancashire. They don't have that sort of relationship. That's not how they operate. Now, when Visit England looked at the UK, they went, this is a problem. It wasn't necessarily a problem in East of England, because I think we were doing some good stuff, but it was a problem elsewhere. And they want to solve that problem through creating local visitor economy partnerships. Nice concept, great, absolutely wonderful. Visit East of England are going to try and align themselves to a local visitor economy partnership. The challenge is that it doesn't as yet come with any money. So it's lovely, DCMS supporting a plan and Visit England supporting a plan, but it does need to come with some real cash to make the opportunities work. We as destinations should be making that LVET happen. Right. Effectively. So we're working with destinations to make that LVET happen, and that LVET could, in theory, migrate to what the function of Visit East of England was. Where are we up to with it? We had a meeting yesterday with the destinations. It's early days. There's going to be some papers written about what the new organisation should be delivering, what we need it to deliver. But we are early in those conversations. It will always annoy me that there was this brush put across the whole of England when I generally think we were working really well with each other in Norfolk and Suffolk. And we were. And Visit England acknowledged we were working, but that one size fits all is something they're going to push out, and we'll see how it develops over the next 12 months. I hope it comes with funding.
Excellent.
I think with any, the last time we went through, I go back to a World of Tourist boards, back in the noughties, they were incredibly well funded. They worked, they were cumbersome, but they were really well funded. They were run by good people, but they were paid well. They were expensive, but they worked to develop tourism. If you fast forward, 15 years after the tourist boards, Visit East of England is an organisation that is a micro size of the Old English Tourist Board, and they do a good job for a small team, but there's nowhere near the money in the system that there was 15 years ago, and even 25 years ago when the tourist boards were potentially even bigger. So we're going through, ever since the 1969 Tourism Act, which created the tourist boards, created the British Tourist Authority, and then set us on this journey that ultimately takes us to 2023, when we're now looking at LVEPs.
So it's a matter of watching this space. So let's watch that space with interest. Thank you, Asa. So at this point in time, I could keep asking questions because I'm finding this really fascinating. So thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I typically ask two questions at the end of each podcast. And the two questions that I've got for you are based around messaging. So the message that the question I'd like to ask first is, what do you consider to be one of the most important rules of business?
Important, other than survivability, because if you don't survive, you're not there. I think in pure tourism, and going back to a pure tourism perspective, you've got to deliver an experience that the individual goes away and tells everybody about. No matter what you're doing, what you're doing in tourism, whether it's a theme park, a wildlife park, a cafe, a restaurant, a tea room, a hotel, a bed and breakfast, they walk out of your door and they've had a good experience. They will tell people, even more powerful in the modern world, they'll tell people in writing on every social media platform they can get their hands on. So make sure you're giving everybody you possibly can a really, really good experience. That should ensure survivability.
Excellent. Give them a good story. I like that. And the last one, which is, following your own career of being advised to go into tourism, from your academic start to where you are now, what message would you give somebody wanting to get into the tourism sector?
Do it. Life is short. Do something you enjoy doing. Have good experiences. I've hand-fed tigers. I've flown aeroplanes. I've done the first ride on roller coasters. all under the guise of tourism. Because it's all part and parcel of that product. You get to spend some time with some amazing people. We've got some wonderful owners, some wonderful managers, some wonderful personalities that all help build up, that are all focused on creating great experiences. It's going to be tough. If you go into tourism, you don't walk into well-paid jobs immediately. You don't. You've got to graft, and you've got to go through those entry-level jobs. But you learn the skills. And I've done work as a waiter. I've done work as a receptionist. I've worked the entry level at holiday parks. That all helped my base understanding. So when I'm talking to an owner, talking to business, I've got that knowledge to pull on. Mm-hmm. So it's been a fantastic journey. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy the businesses I work with. I feel I'm just been very, very lucky. And I sort of thank my dad, really. My dad pointed me in the direction and said, look, take a deep breath. I think you should be doing this. And it's worked out really nicely for me.
Excellent. What a great point to finish on. Thank you, Asa. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you very much for taking part.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's Tourism Business Chat. For more from the Insight series, including webinars and our latest blog posts on all things business, you can find us at larking-gowan.co.uk.